everybody, welcome to another tutorial. And today I wanted to talk about colors, more specifically how you guys can practice understanding color. Now, when I started my art journey, color was always a very intimidating topic because it always felt like I didn't know how to choose the right colors or how to work with colors. And the problem with color is most when you're starting art, you don't understand that colors they're actually relative to each other. Um, Sometimes we see a color, but it's not really the color we are seeing. It's rather a color that looks like that because it's surrounded by other colors that make it look like that. This is called color relativity. It's a very interesting thing, and I want to show it to you guys how this works and how you can practice colors, because it doesn't matter if I just talk to you about the theory of color, because you can learn that theory with practice and exercises. And I think it's a lot better to learn this way because it's more practical and we're not just talking about random things. So what we're going to do is simple color exercises. This is a simple way to study color, and we have a very simple reference here. It's simple, but it still has some interesting colors, and let me show you guys how we can start practicing this, okay? So I have my canvas here ready, my reference here on the right, and when you're working with colors, the first thing you want to do is get rid of the white canvas, because this white is going to confuse your eyes. So you want to get the colors into your canvas as soon as possible. And the way we're going to start this is thinking, if I were to turn this image into one color only, what color would that be? And I think that it makes more sense to start with the background. I'm going to fill in the background color, and then I'm going to bring in the red for the ball. And the way to go about this is we're going to have to pick colors by eye. We're not going to eye drop it and select from the image. We're going to look at the picture or reference and try to guess what is this color that I'm seeing. And you're going to guess the color. You're going to choose it from your color picker, and then you're going to put it in the canvas. And after that, you're going to see, okay, does this color make sense? And if it doesn't, you're going to try again. Okay? So let's try this out. I think the background is like a gray, but it has like a reddish tone. It's kind of like a warmer gray, you know, a little bit purple, if I would say. So I'm gonna go, okay, purple. Okay, let me show it to you guys. This is the color wheel, if you don't know what this is. Colors, they have like a range, and it goes in a circle, like, because I was looking here, this slider, this is the hue slider. When I go to red here, this is the same red, and so it's like, as it keeps going infinitely like a circle, you know. This is the same slider, but in a more visual representation, right? I like working with this color wheel. The only thing that I don't like is working with this circle here, because I think it's harder to pick between, to select between like light and dark, and also saturated and desaturated, which is this color, this box here. From left to right, we have saturation. From top to bottom, we have light. So light is like white to black, and saturation is like the color at its fullest to the color in a very light shade, very desaturated, I guess. Think of saturation as more color or less color. This hue here is what kind of color? Is it red? Is it blue? And the lightness is it light or is it dark? So the combination between these three variables creates the color. So anyways, I'm gonna go with a red that kind of looks like purple, but I'm not gonna go into super purple because this gray here is not really purple. I know that from experience, but you know what? It doesn't look that purple, but I'm gonna pick a color that kind of looks like the color I'm trying to pick. And I have like I'm gonna use the default brushes for this, just to show you guys you don't need any fancy brushes to do this exercise. There, I put my first color in. And so I picked by eye, and now I'm gonna think, okay, does it look like the color that I'm looking at? And it kind of looks lighter than the original. But then again, guys, I told you, colors, they work in relationship with each other. So if you have only one color in your canvas and you're trying to compare it with a color from your reference, but on your reference, you don't have only one color, you have several different colors. And the way for you to start picking the right colors is to actually have other colors from the reference to compare to. So for instance, right now I only have the background, right? Oh, it had 0 opacity. So the opacity here in the slider was a little bit dark. So this is too dark now. So right now, I forgot what I was saying. Right now, I only have one color in the canvas, so I need to pick at least another so I can make the comparison. So I'm gonna try and select this red color, and I'm gonna go with, again, looking at this ball, this sphere. If I were to represent it with only one color, what color would that be? And looking at this sphere, I think it would be red, but more like orangey red. And it looks somewhat saturated. But also a bit dark. Let's see if this color. Okay, so I tried to pick a color, right? And don't worry too much about the form of being like super perfect. Okay, here we're just practicing the colors. So I tried to guess what this color was. I put it on my canvas. And now if you stop and look at it, even the background color kind of changed. Because now it's surrounding this very saturated bright orange or red. And so it gives the background color a different sort of feel to it. Even though it's like a purplish gray, it might feel different to your eyes. And this is the fun of this exercise. It's kind of like an experimentation. And you're going to see that you don't have to pick like precisely the same colors as the reference. As long as you keep in mind this color relativity thing, you might end up with a painting that looks to your eye exactly like the one you're looking at in the reference. But if I were to like, wait, why is this not working? If I were to color drop this, like color pick this with the picker like this, I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to cheat. It would be two different colors, but because we kept color relativity in mind, the colors work and they look the same. Anyways, going back to the tutorial, I think this red here needs to be a little bit more saturated because it looks like faded. So if I try to go with a more saturated red, this difference is very subtle, but I can kind of see it's a little bit better. We're not gonna get stuck here because, as I said, we need to pick, we need to put a lot, we need to quickly put the colors into the painting so we can have a better reference point to make our choices. Oh, is this right? Is this wrong? So now, going back to trying to pick the colors like in a simplified way, right? I put the biggest colors that I saw, which was the background. I put the second biggest. Now what's the third biggest? And I think it's the shadow. There's no really right or wrong here, but I'm gonna go for the shadow. And for the shadow, I'm gonna select my background and I'm gonna darken it a little bit. It's always better to, when you're picking your colors, it's better to go slowly towards the colors that you're trying to pick. For instance, I picked this background color. I was like, oh, the shadow is darker. So you might think, okay, let me make it darker. And it looks super dark, right? So you gotta, it's easier to paint colors that don't have too much contrast and add contrast later, rather than having a lot of contrast from the start and then seeing that, oh, I exaggerated in the contrast. And by contrast, we mean like this color here is very bright, and if I were to pick a super dark color, now there's a lot of contrast between the two colors because one is super light and the other is super dark in value. We're gonna talk more about value in later tutorials, but for now, let's just keep this going. And I'm gonna just go around here, the shape. And try not to think of also objects, and rather like shapes and blobs of color, okay? Because we want to, when we're drawing, we're representing things with lines and points, but when we're painting, everything is just blobs of color. Now, I think, okay, now this is very different doing this talking to someone because I'm not used to speaking when I do this. So now that we have our shadow color, things start to look different. And now we can better see if the colors are right or wrong. And I think our background is too light. I'm trying to darken it a little bit. And this is what I told you guys, don't worry about making the shapes perfect, because we're gonna be changing the colors a lot. And also working one layer only, because I want you to get used to being messy and redoing things. Because something that a lot of beginners struggle with, and I struggle with too, was being afraid of picking the wrong colors and making mistakes, because then it meant you gotta do things again. But then you're only going to know if you picked the right color if you pick some color and see if it worked. And sometimes you gotta just keep going before you can tell if you picked the right color or not. Okay, so I think I'm gonna try and pick the shadow color here. There's a very dark shadow in here and a more, let's say, moderate shadow down here. So I'm gonna pick the moderate shadow, remembering that if I were to represent the shadow with only one color, what would that be? So I'm gonna select the color of the sphere, and looking at my reference, I know it's a bit darker, but also it looks more warm, like more orange. So I'm gonna try and bring it a little closer to orange. Let me show it to you, the color wheel. So my red was here, right? If I go here, it gets cooler because we're going towards blue. If I get here, it gets warmer because we're going towards yellow. So I'm gonna go a little bit towards yellow. It's very saturated, right? So I'm looking at it, it's darker. So I'm gonna go here maybe. We were about here, we were kinda here, like, and I'm gonna go here. Let's see if this works. And working with colors, guys, it's like a learning curve. You're always experimenting and trying things. And that's how you start to get good at this. Okay, so I put my shadow color in. And looking at it, I think what's turning me off a lot right now is this shadow here, because it's way too bright in my opinion. So I'm gonna make it a little bit darker and see how that looks. Okay, this might have been too dark. No. But I think it creates a better contrast also, because shadows are supposed to be dark. Now, there's no rule of how to keep going here. What we're trying to do is we look at the reference, and whatever we see, we notice, we put on the canvas, okay? So I might look at this reference and I might notice, oh, there's a light color here. And so I'm gonna try and paint that light color. Or I might look at a reference and see, oh, this shadow part is darker than this. And I might paint that. Either way, it's totally fine. You don't need to go to paint something first rather than the other. Just the idea to get started is what are the biggest colors that I see, So we're going from big to small in detail. So I think I'm gonna just try to make this color darker. Something that I'm noticing is I think the shadow is too cold. And by cold meaning too close to blue. And it's interesting that whenever you're picking these colors, you see how the hue shifts? When you got started, this shadow color was actually around here. But since it's a gray, it means it has no color, technically. The computer thinks it's a purple. So that's also interesting. So I'm also gonna put some color here. Because there's no like really gray or black in real life. Things always have color, even white. Depending on the light source, it's kind of yellow or blue. So it's never a good idea to just go straight up here to this extreme, You're always going to pick something around here, or even with blacks, you might go all the way here if you want to make it super saturated. Which I think in this case it looks better. Also because knowing that the sphere is red, it's also reflecting a bit of that red into the environment. And so you can kind of see the shadows get warm at some point. Like in here, I see a little bit of red here. Let's try to paint that. So when I said I see a little bit of red here, you might think, okay, let me pick a red color, and then you just paint it. But then it's gonna look super off because what you did was you jumped from the color that is surrounding the color you're trying to pick to the color you're trying to pick. So for instance, if I redo this, the colors here around what I'm trying to paint are colder, they're darker. And so if I want to paint something that, according to my reference, looks more red, I'm not going to jump to the red. So if I'm here, I'm not going to go here and jump to it. I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to go in the direction of that color. And this again is the thing color relativity. Because when I start leaning to colors, then they start looking like the color I'm seeing. And they're not going to look that off. Now, if you're looking at this color that I picked, now it looks more subtle than the other color. I wish I didn't erase it now. Because we were leaning towards the color we were trying to represent. I'm going to smudge this color. Let me see if I... try to look for a I don't know where the default smudge tool is, but I want to make a nice transition here, and one way to do that is to use the smudge tool. Okay, This might be too strong. By the way, about the smudge tool, I'm gonna make a video talking about the different brushes that we have in digital painting, just so you guys have a better understanding. Now I think this kind of looks alright. Just trying to bring this down a little bit more. And again, not afraid to make mistakes and not afraid to rework. Something else that I'm seeing in this shadow is this part is much lighter. So I'm gonna try to bring it back to something light. Now it could have been too light. I probably shouldn't have smudged that right now because I'm still working on this transition. So I'm gonna bring the color back. This hard edge here. Yeah, might have been too dark. And now that I'm looking at it, it kind of looks more reddish as well. I'm just gonna try. Do you see what I did here? So I had a gray, and I said I'm gonna try and make this more red. So I brought a little bit closer to red, which is like the saturated part here. And if I paint this over, it looks a little bit more red. If you can't see that completely, don't worry, because as you do this exercise, you get better at seeing these colors. I also think this part here is more red. So I'm going to try and paint that as well. Because looking at the... Ooh, and you see this? Now, I thought I was gonna make it more red, but this looks more orange to my eyes. So, if this looks more orange, which is kind of the opposite of the color I was trying to pick, I went too far in this direction, and instead I need to go into this direction. So I'm gonna pick this color again. Now I'm gonna bring it back away from orange. Now, I don't know what this color looks like. So I'm gonna, doesn't look like the one I tried to pick. So I'm gonna bring it back again. We might have to go a bit more like this. Now I saturated the color a little bit more, and now it has more of the color that I was trying to pick. And again, guys, this is not about, these studies are more about learning to pick the right colors rather than making like a perfect or good painting, okay? We're just practicing picking colors and understanding colors and working with colors. So I think now we need to work a little bit on the sphere here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on the shadow first. Now, looking at this shadow, I see there's a very dark color here. So I'm gonna try to pick it because I know darks. Once I put this dark color here, it's gonna change the feel of the sphere entirely. So to pick this color, I think it's dark, but it's also a bit more saturated. I'm gonna try to come here and roughly paint the shape that I'm seeing. Okay. Now looking at my reference, I think it's more black, so it's darker. So I'm gonna try an eyeball something, and I think it looks better. Now it might be not that dark, but actually the reference kind of seems more dark in here. I'm gonna try and paint that in. Yeah, kind of like this. Again, this is what I'm seeing. You might see something different, so paint what you see instead of what I'm seeing. Now that I'm looking at this, I think this, can you see me? This color here is a little bit darker in the reference. And that is why we can only tell the colors once we try to pick more colors, because then when you have the other colors in your canvas, you have a better point of reference to measure your colors with. Now, something else that I'm seeing is in this shadow, there's a little bit of light. There's the reflections on the sides here, but there's also like a lighter color in here. And that lighter color in my eyes, it's a little bit yellowish. So starting from this, I'm gonna go to yellow, but I'm gonna go just a little bit to yellow. So here we are here, yellow is here, right? I'm gonna go back again, just move a little bit closer to this yellow. Now let's see what it looks like if I just paint it like this. Okay, there's a bit of a difference, but I'm going to try and bring it up and to the left. So I'm making it lighter. Ooh, and you see how it looks yellow, even though it's not really yellow. That's pretty cool, right? Well, I hope you think this is cool. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job properly. Colors are cool, guys. Nice. You know, I always feel very proud when I pick the colors and they look like what I saw in the canvas. So it's nice. Okay. Now, what are we seeing? I want to paint the reflection that we're seeing here. What? Okay. So this reflection, it looks very saturated. And it goes back and it's less yellow than the color we just painted. So I'm gonna go back to something that is less yellow. I'm going to saturate it. Okay. We might need to go more saturated. This might be too saturated now. I'm also going to undo this color that I painted. And again, we're just experimenting. Trying to eyeball it. Something's feeling off. So I'm going to try and move this slider here. Still doesn't look like the color I'm seeing. So I'm going to just move the things around and see, like, oh, I moved this thing to this direction. Does it look closer or further from the color I'm seeing? And if it looks further, I just go back. If it looks closer, I keep going until I find the color. and just try to enjoy the process, because I know it can be tiring, but it's fun. Caller, who are you? Tell me your secrets. Okay, I think this looks closer to what I'm seeing. I also think it changes, it varies a little bit. It's not like just one color. Here it looks less dark, so like as if it's going up here, and on this side it looks darker, like this. Let's also paint this reflection real quick. Now, looking at that reflection kind of looks green to my eyes. I'm going to pick this color here. So if it looks green, green is over here. But I'm not gonna pick this color because, let me show it to you guys. It should be a lighter color, so like more desaturated. But if I put this here, completely off, right? So again, I'm gonna lean into green. So to lean into green, the color would go like this, right? And the further we go, the closer we go to green. But then the further we go, the more strong this green is going to look like. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit closer to green. And also, I'm going to bring it closer to gray. It still looks too yellow. Something about going to gray, because if you look at, the color that we picked, it was this part of the slider was here. When in reality, I wish I had like the full color wheel. I might show it to you right now. Editor Gabriel. Guys, just really quick. I started to explain about the color wheel, but I thought it would look better if I show it to you guys right now. So what I was saying is, why picking a grayish tone is because if I am here in this color, let me create a new layer. If I am here in this yellow, actually if I'm here in because we were picking an orange color, right? So, okay, how do I do this? Maybe, if I'm here in this orange, and I want to go to green, if I just go around it, leaning to that color, maybe I would end up here, right? But as I told you guys, when we pick grays, the color looks closer to the one we're going, because actually you're traveling through here in the middle instead of through here in the borders. And this is the full color wheel that we're looking at. And in the center we have white. And when we're moving closer to this white, we're actually going closer to this left side, which is the saturation side. So to kind of demonstrate this, I'm going to pick this blue in the extreme. And if I move this closer to the white, do you see how the color moved? Pay attention to this slider when I pick the color. I picked the color to the border of the circle. Now I picked the color closer to white. So the slider was here and went to here. So meaning, whenever you pick a color from your canvas and you want to bring it closer to, let's say I pick this dark orange here, which could be somewhere around here, right? And it's dark because the light slider would turn all this color into dark. So if I wanted to go from here, it's over here, right? To the green, the closest, let's suppose the color is here, the closest path would to go through here and not around here. And so let's say it would stop somewhere around here. It would be kind of like a yellow, but it wouldn't be here, it would be here. And if I actually bring it, so I try to paint this, it still looks yellow, right? But if I bring it closer to gray, it looks more green. To show you how green this looks, I'm gonna bring it closer to this. You see, it kind of looks green. I hope you can see it. Otherwise, missed my point entirely. Anyways, going back to our example. For now, if it was not clear, just trust me when I say going closer to gray, when you try to lean into a color, also desaturated. There are some exceptions, but keep this in mind, that if you desaturate it, that's when you go closer to the color. Unless that color you're trying to go towards is more saturated, so you go a little bit less in the desaturation slide and more into the hue slide. But again, as we're doing these exercises, you start to understand how to pick these colors. And it's more like trial and error rather than having like rules to follow, okay? So, oh my god. We were trying to paint this reflection. This still looks a bit too yellow. If I try to go closer to gray, let's see what it looks like. Do you see how it looks more green? And this is the effect that I was trying to explain. And I hope it does look more green to you. Because if you look at me like, no, Gabriel, that is purple. Then I'm like, my god. I don't know what to do then. But yeah, I think it's very close to the colors we were trying to pick. Ooh, okay. Now, I am seeing these colors more like this. And I think there's also a little bit of this black in the sphere. Or on the sphere, I guess. I'm just gonna try and paint this. Oh, too much. Okay, well, this side, I also see there's a bit of white there. Probably reflected by the floor. I don't like how the shape of the shadow here. I try to fix it, but oh, I hope you guys are having fun because I am. Okay, I'll fix it later. So I am seeing a little bit of white, as I said. So I know it's this color that is reflecting in the sphere. And this color is a bit purple. It's very desaturated and light. And I am at this color, which is more orangey and more saturated, right? And I'm trying to go around here. So I'm going to pick something like this maybe, and a little closer to the purple. And there we go. I think it looks good. Okay, now let's move to this side of the sphere because we haven't given enough love to it. Now that we have our sphere, I mean the shadow area painted. Maybe we spent too much time with the shadows at this point, but anyways, I think, remember, it's about painting what you're seeing and not necessarily following a rule or order. I think this red is less warm, like less to yellow, and more cold, and it's also a bit more saturated, if I may. You know, I might do something crazy. And bring it more to the other side. And I think this is looking better. I'm gonna stop right here. I'm gonna paint there's a light here in the left. I'm gonna paint that. It looks more orange. So I'm gonna again go back. Maybe here. Okay. I think the saturation, the value is alright, but I think it's still more orange. So I'm gonna go here. There we go. I hope you guys can understand what's going on here. Now this side really is strong, but here on the left, on the bottom part, it's less. So what we can do is, looking at the sliders here on this is the orange, this is the red. So I'm gonna try to pick like a mid tone there. I'm gonna bring it here, and I also am gonna bring it closer to the left. Might have been too much, but we can also pick this color here that I think is closer to what I was trying to paint. And there we go. When I'm doing these exercises, I try not to rely too much on the opacity tool because I want to get better at picking the colors myself. And I would recommend you guys try and do the same, because it can really be a fun process if you let it be. Now, something interesting that I'm seeing now is in this sort of border, I am seeing some purples. And I'm gonna try and paint them. Okay, and the way we're gonna do this is, I know it's the transition between the red and the dark. So let's see how dark this is. This is like super dark. It's way down here, right? And this is red. It's here. So we're going to go somewhere in between here. But since it's still a very dark area here, it's kind of like the transition. I'm gonna pick something down here. So now I'm looking at the hue slider here, this slider. This one is here. This one is here, okay. Now, if we wanna go to the purple, we're gonna have to bring the color to the purple, which is here. But remember, it's way down here. So let's see how this looks like. You know, it does look more purple, but I think it's too dark. Let me try to bring it up. Yeah. If I bring it up a little bit more. Okay. You see how we're getting closer to the red? But I think the previous color was better. Right. Looking good. My colors are looking good. Now, if this was like an actual painting that I was doing, I would start blending these colors a little bit better. Now I'm trying to paint the extension of this color, but I think it's too dark for this orange. Oh no, there's not enough contrast. And that's because this guy is very close to this guy. So this guy needs to be... Actually, the orange seems lighter. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit. There we go. Maybe too much. Gonna bring it down again. Okay, that's better. And now that I'm looking at the orange, this orange, it looks too light. So let's bring it down a little bit. Is this better? And I think it is. See? Kind of looks like maybe not so much. So, as I said, this is very fun to paint. And zooming out, I can kind of see the shapes a little bit better. There's also something good you guys can do. Kind of zoom out on your canvas from time to time, because you can better see the shapes and all that. I still think this is too orange, especially now that we have the purple. Maybe I'll settle for this. Okay, now let's paint this highlight here. Now the highlight seems very white. What I'm gonna do is bring it closer to yellow. Let's go all the way here. Make it smaller. Just paint it here. Now this part also seems a bit lighter. I'm gonna bring it a touch here and just paint it lighter. Now there's like something here as well. You know, this seems more close to yellow. Love it. Okay, now I'm gonna pick this color here. For this one, I think I'm gonna go very yellow. Again, guys, just having fun. Oh, I like that. There's also a yellow light source here. But I think this one looks more like something like this. Yeah. Dot. Maybe a little bit more saturated. Yeah, because the colors here are so dark, so saturated that the light yellow that we had was too desaturated for it. So that's why I was trying to saturate it a little bit more. And I think it's still better. What if I go lighter? I mean darker. Ooh, yeah, I like that. Am I too excited about the colors? Maybe. Alright. Looking good. You know, I see a bit of reflection here. So I'm gonna bring this closer to a bluish tone. To do that, what can we do here? Maybe we go down here a little bit and desaturate it. Boom. Okay. I think all in all, we did a great job. Thanks, guys. You helped me a lot. Pretty cool, huh? What do you guys think? Do you think the colors look close to the reference? Because I think they do. And if you disagree, shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so yeah, this is the idea of color studies. I am seeing that the border here of this shadow looks darker than the inside of it. And this is what I'm trying to paint. Yeah, so hope this was helpful. We could start to like blend some of these colors. But yeah, this is the idea of color studies, guys. I hope this was helpful. Now, if you want to blend, it's a matter of style, I think. Because, you know, you don't have to blend everything. Some artists, they have a more flat style. Other artists, you should probably blend before you do the highlights. keep that in mind. But I was doing the demonstration for y'all. So don't blame me for not thinking through this. Something that I am going to blend is this. This shadow here is a bit more blended, this part. So I'm gonna try and do that. And you could just refine everything and really take your time to make it look nice. Just zoom in, zoom out. This is how you paint. Just a lot of back and forth. Just try to make some better transitions here. You also don't want to blend everything, because some things they do have like a very sharp edge, and you want to keep those sharp edges there, because they make your painting look a lot better. Yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun here right now. So but yeah, that's it for the tutorial. I hope this was helpful. Oh, my back is killing me. Remember, guys, don't be afraid to make a mess. Start with big colors, right? If you could simplify the painting and paint it in one color, what color would that be? And then start moving from there. Like start with the big ones and go for the second biggest, the third biggest, etc. until you're painting the details. And remember, paint what you're seeing, and when you see a color, you paint that color, but always remember to lean towards that color instead of trying to jump to that color, okay? And have fun. The more you do these exercises, the easier they're going to be, and the more picking colors is going to be second nature for you. I improved my colors a lot after starting to do these studies. I highly recommend anyone to do studies like this as well. Nice. So that looks pretty cool. Come on. Sorry, I just can't stop because I want to make it look nice. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna stop now, otherwise we're not gonna end this tutorial. Stop, Gabriel. Okay, sorry. But yeah, I think it looks cool. Hope this was helpful. See you guys in the next tutorial. Bye bye.